That's effectively all that ADHD is. Your brain is lighting up or not lighting up in different spaces and in different ways to the same stimulus that different brains are lighting up. Your brain is the way that it is, and it's a gift.
So I've got to talk about why the genetic advantage. I know we pulled this out, and I'm going against what we talked about because it's such a good segue. All right. Here's the thing. Why does ADHD exist? And why is this a genetic advantage? And we pulled this out for timing, and here we go. I have ADHD. I have impulse control, so too bad. You're getting it. All right. Here's why ADHD exists. They studied remote villages in Africa, and they studied villages that didn't have ADHD, and they studied villages that had a prevalence of ADHD, because it's genetic, right? And what they found is that the villages who had ADHD thrived more than the ones that didn't, and here's why. When the village was hungry and in a famine, and they needed food, or they were gonna die, we're the people, because our dopamine was lower. ADHD is also a misregulation of norepinephrine. Sometimes we have less dopamine, which is why it's harder to do things. Dopamine in the frontal lobe is responsible for executing on tasks, motivation, organization, prioritization, right? We have less dopamine, so we do really well when there's chaos, and we get calm. Do you ever have that, where you get calm when there's stress? Okay, so back to these villages, what happened was, oh my gosh, the village is freaking out, we don't have food. We were the ones that would go out and hunt the lion for 3 days, right? Because we could stay calm. Oh, she's already doing it, she's ready. Let's go hunt after this. We would go hunt the lion because we could stay calm under pressure. We didn't freak out. We have what's called time blindness. A lot of us do, where we can't gauge what time it is. You get hyper-focused, you're passionate, you forget to eat, right? And we're out there for 3 days, our feet are cut up, we need water, we haven't slept, and we're not even thinking about it because we're so focused on that lion. We're hyper-focused, right? We are the people that go get the lion, bring him back, and feed the village. Also, they also looked at sleeping schedules. So we're actually, and again, if this doesn't resonate, all our brains are different, feel free to throw it out. If it does, great. Our sleeping schedules are behind by 2 hours. We get tired typically 2 hours later, and mornings are a little bit more rough. We were the ones who would watch for danger in the middle of the night. We're the ones that could go off on less sleep and be able to save the villages. And that's why, that's why it exists.
Yeah, I love it. There's a couple different types of ADHD though, right? We have a couple people exhibiting what we would call the hyperactive, right? The running, the fidgeting, the moving, you can't quite sit still. We got a lot of fidgeting in this audience. I love it. Fidget more, double down. I want you to fidget so hard that you can't fidget anymore. You just let it go. You are welcome here. I love it. So that's a pretty popular type. The traditional association with ADHD is young boys, right? They can't control themselves. They have outbursts. They're busy. They just have to move their body all the time. That's true, right? There's a lot going on with that. There's another type as well, though. So that type is typically, not only, but typically associated with men. We see it more prevalent in men. There's another type. It's called inattentive, ADD inattentive type, ADHD inattentive. And this is gonna look less like you're expressing all of that energy out and more like you're internalizing and redirecting the energy back in. So some examples of this sound like brain chatter. It sounds like talking over people in your head, but really trying really hard not to. Like you can be patient, you can wait them out, but you're just...
One mic.
Yes.
Are you done?
That's why we have one mic. So... Come back to me, don't leave. So ADHD inattentive type typically is associated with women, and not only, but is typical. And women will fly under the radar with this because you can function really, really well by learning to calm your body. You already have a calm body often if you're an inattentive type, if you're on this extreme of the things. But the internal chatter often can be falsely labeled as anxiety. So a trend that I'm seeing in my practice over the years is that women come in and they've been treated for anxiety, and they learn the coping skills, they learn the language, they maybe even took some medication for it, and for whatever reason, it worked for a while and now it's not. It stopped working. The breathing techniques stopped working, the suggestions stopped working, and they never got good at meditating anyway, because who can possibly quiet this chatter, right? So they come in, and if that's their story, I immediately begin assessing for ADHD, and I don't want to say nobody, but so far in my practice, anybody that comes in with that story tests high on ADHD. So it's been misdiagnosed, and they haven't gotten the care and the help that they need, and they feel deeply ashamed all over again, deeply wounded, deeply hurt. What is wrong with me? Something is wrong. If I could just fix it, I could get the results in my life that I want.
Yeah. So well put. And as you're talking, I was just thinking, can you guess on the stage who has hyperactive ADHD and who has inattentive? Just saying. Okay.
That's all I got.
Yeah. No, and that's really helpful. And now we're gonna, you're amazing. We're gonna move. So we're gonna talk about the analogy in cup. And if you're super fidgety and at some point you need to leave, burn this in your brain. This is going to be the precursor to our five steps, not 4 or 5. This is going to be the precursor to this. As a coach, this is what changes agents' business. It changes everything. And with INCUP, there's this analogy, because it's typically our frontal lobe, it's a brain structure. Here are the things that light that up, and see if these resonate for you. INCUP: interesting, new, challenging, urgent, passion. Interesting, new, challenging, urgent, passion. This is INCUP. These are the things that studies have shown, and from testimonials, light up that part of your brain. Does that resonate with anybody here?
Yes.
Yeah, so many nods. How cool that all of us have so many similarities. That's what blew me away as a coach. And understanding INCUP, we're going to talk about the 2 fuel tanks. And here's the thing, I've had people literally go from 250,000 in GCI to $1 million in GCI in less than 3 years. Not only one, I've seen people do this double, triple by using this philosophy. And we're going to talk about the 2 fuel tanks. People without ADHD have 1 fuel tank. Imagine a fuel tank in a car. And they can use that fuel throughout the day however they want, right? And things that they don't want to do, take more of that if you have to go to the dentist, do admin work, and they can use that fuel how they want. All of us have 2 fuel tanks. Here's the key to hacking this before we get into these 5 steps. We have 1 fuel tank that's 3 times the size of the fuel tank in a car, and that's for everything in INCUP. You ever had that? You're doing something you're passionate about, challenging, and you literally forget what time it is? You can go for 6 hours and you have more energy at the end than when you started. Gold mine, right? This is the treasure chest right here. Everything else is in that other fuel tank, right? Everything in INCUP is in this 3 times the amount of fuel. Everything else is in the other fuel tank. Imagine a third or a fourth of the fuel tank in a car. That's for everything else that's not in INCUP. And it can depend whether how well you slept that day, if you exercised, if you ate food. When that fuel tank is done, as a coach, that's when we see emotion regulation issues, irritability, burnout, apathy, depression, mental health stuff, all the ADHD symptoms start to turn up. And that is the key, and we're going to get into the 5 steps, and we're going to be leaning on that model, because the key is to get yourself into INCUP and get it out of that other fuel tank, because now, guess what? We have 3 times the amount of fuel as agents who don't have ADHD. Watch out. That's where we see these huge quantum leaps in like a year, 6 months, is getting you in your joy zone. And that's going to lead us to the 5 steps. I'm going to tell you what the 5 kind of topics are, and we'll go deep on each one. The first one is lead generation. We're going to figure out how to get your lead gen in INCUP. The second one is leverage, talking about what to leverage, when to leverage, because you're going to leverage sooner than someone without ADHD, and what that looks like. We're going to talk about, because that's your one, that's why I didn't remember it. You also have brain fog sometimes with ADHD, just so you know. You're not getting dementia. I've actually had people get screened for dementia. Okay, a lot of resonate. You don't have it, you have ADHD. Well, I mean, I don't know how old you are. Maybe if you're at risk, get checked. Screw you, doctor. Tyler said I don't have dementia. Bye. Okay. The fourth one is going to be, we're going to talk about meds. I'm going to talk about, again, not medical advice. There's a lot of stigma around there, and I'm just going to share a personal story about that. You can talk to your doctor with that. And the fifth one is acceptance and grace and embracing your brain. So number one, let's get into lead gen, all right? Get your lead gen into InCup. If not, good luck. That's what I want to say to you. You do not have to follow some script and sit and hammer the phones if you don't want to. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Your brain is amazing. You have 3 times the amount of energy for things in InCup. Go for the path of least resistance. And our world is not built for ADHD. And our books aren't, and our motivational speeches, except for mine, right? It's just not built for ADHD. If something feels super, super hard, pull back. Go for whatever the objective is. Let yourself be flexible and creative with the way to get there. I'm going to give you some examples of what high-level clients do. One client I have hates sitting down and doing lead gen. Hates it. What she does, she loves vintage shopping. She will go to garage sales every weekend and vintage shop and get 100 contacts, face to face. 100 Mets. Okay, Mets have a 10% conversion rate. 100 Mets. That's how many is that? At a 10% conversion rate, 100 people. 10. I think. I didn't even do the math before this. If you're wrong, I'm blaming Carlos. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't even, thank you. All right, so get your Legion into InCup. Another one, I have somebody that sends out lottery tickets every month. And so the phone call is, hey, did you win? Are we going to Hawaii? Someone else who loves dogs, and all of her Legion is going to dog parks and doing charities and volunteering dog walking at shelters. You notice that this is not sitting still on a phone. And if you want to do a phone, get a walking treadmill, right? Some way, because we can go from understimulated to overstimulated multiple times throughout the day. Pay attention to that. Yeah? And so if you're understimulated, get a walking treadmill, listen to loud music, look up a special interest, something like that. We always want to be watching it. If you're overstimulated, turn the lights off, right? Put sunglasses on, calm that down. Another one for InCup, and I know for timing we'll move to the next one. There's so much cool stuff, and we've got a lot of stuff coming out for you, by the way, after this. So the other thing is volunteering. I have someone who loves volunteering and has a huge database. And part of it's pairing with her church. I actually have a couple people that do volunteering, and all of it is volunteering. And it's calling people, hey, who do you know in the community who needs their lawn mowed? Who do you need in the community who needs to move? That's all of the Legion. All of it is a huge volunteer database. Hey, do you want to volunteer? And they got that idea. I have a few coaching clients here, and you guys have inspired a lot of people too. That's lead gen. Figure out what you love. It could be playing soccer. It could be creative. Remember, we have the most creative brain. Sorry, everybody, we do. So be creative. The second one is going to be leverage. You are going to leverage sooner. So most times as a coach, I'm going to recommend people get, and what I mean by leverage, by the way, is an assistant, a system, technology, an app, Google Docs, anything. Most people, when they ask when to get an assistant as a coach, we say get an assistant when you're doing 36 deals a year. You're doing 3 deals a month for at least 3 months in a row. You're pacing for that. With ADHD, scrap that. Don't do stuff that's super hard that makes you want to pull your hair out. Stop it. Be creative. A lot of us have been told our whole lives to be a certain way or do something. No, this is your excuse. Be yourself. Oh my gosh, you are so gifted. You have no idea what your brain is capable of. Follow your brain. Try that for a week. Throw out all the stuff you've learned, not all of it, a lot of it, right? Throw it out and just play for a week. Make sure you have your objective though, and let all of that other stuff be creative in what you want it to be and see what happens. See if you get more contacts. See if you talk to more people. See if you're excited to get up in the morning. This is the stuff that makes people's business explode, is they're themselves. So get leverage sooner, as soon as you can afford it. hire slowly. That's the one thing though. A lot of times, sometimes we can go fast. You gotta hire the right person or it's a whole mess and you gotta go back. Go to career visioning, do those, do it right. Get an admin as soon as you can, get a virtual assistant, get a TC manager, get everything off your plate that's not income. And lastly, what I'll say before I pass it to you is, if you have to do something that's not an income, this is what's really working for people. Choose 1 or 2 things a day and cap it at that. If you have your list, don't try to do all that. You're gonna drain your fuel tank. Have you ever had a day where you get home and you've done a bunch of stuff you didn't wanna do, and doing laundry feels impossible and you can hardly feed yourself, and you go buy Burger King or McDonald's or just somewhere to just put something in your mouth because that's called executive function. By the way, you're not a master procrastinator. That's the other thing I want to say. I get that all the time. No, throw that out. You're not a master procrastinator. It's called executive function, and it's a lack of dopamine in the frontal lobe lighting up, and there's tips for that. And if you have to do something that's not an income, that's in another fuel tank, space it out. And the other thing, there are different things you can do. 1, see if you can put it in income. Make it urgent by setting a timer. Give yourself 15 minutes to do that thing that probably takes 30 minutes, because we're actually probably really good at that. We practice that, right? Doing things at the last minute. Body doubling is another thing. Have you ever had a closet that you need to clean out, and you need to clean out, and it felt impossible, and then you left it for weeks and it drove you nuts, and then your friend came over and sat there, and all of a sudden you can do it all and you can organize the whole closet? It's called body doubling, right? It engages that frontal lobe. Now it's urgent, now it's timely. The other thing you can do is pair it with something you do like. If you have to fold laundry, put on Netflix. Pair it with things you like. Put on music that creates dopamine. Light up that frontal lobe. Let's see. Yeah, and there was one more thing with that. Tell people. I mean, you can get a coach. This isn't necessarily a plug for a coach, and it works, just saying. No. Tell somebody, tell your kids, tell your dog, tell your friend, tell your neighbor, and tell somebody so there's accountability, because that can be really helpful too. And now we're gonna go to number 3.
I loved every second of that. Flexibility. Oh my gosh, flexibility is the name of the game. How many of you, my hand is going up first in this room, how many of you have ever, can I cuss with you guys? Yes. I have the mic. How many of you guys have ever felt like shit? At all? Because you were trying to be consistent and you just couldn't do it. I would like to write you a personal note in the air, permission to fire consistency. This is no longer a goal. It's gone. Free yourself from the burden of needing to be consistent. Now, if some of you have nailed consistency in an area of your life and it feels really good, I'm so proud of you. I would like to learn from you. And whatever's working for you, keep doing it. But if it's not working, flexibility is the name of the game. Work with your brain, not against it. An example I'd like to offer that's a bit silly is that I change up my planner system when I get bored. This is around every 2 to 4 weeks. Okay? Yep. I have 3 or 4 different planners that I really, really like for different reasons. Planners, the bullet journal, this and that, something on my iPad, right? Whatever mood I'm in, whatever's gonna get me moving for the day, whatever feels good, I use. The one thing I don't change, my Google Calendar. All my appointments go in there. Cool? So this is an example of letting it work for me. How many of you used to believe if you just found the right notebook? I think I still believe that on my bad days. I'm on Amazon, I'm like, if I'm in the notebook section, something's wrong. The phrase I find myself saying to myself and to others, even out loud, is when I do something silly, when I do something ADHD, when I do something that I used to feel shamed for, is, you know what, I'm really good at other things. When I lose another cardigan, I'm really good at other things. When I break something, lose something, when I'm late, I'm really good at other things, right? And I'm really good at those things. I'm funny, right? So, working with your brain. Oh, and a way that you can work with your brain is curiosity over consequences. Have you ever heard the advice to You know, how many of you have ever tried beating yourself into submission? How'd that work for you? Curiosity over consequences. Hey, I'm having trouble getting off the couch today. Those dishes are piling up. Things are working. I need to do my lead gen. Me too, guys. I need to do my lead gen. And I don't want to. Cool. Okay, me. What's going on? What's going on today? How am I feeling? Flexibility also includes being willing to do the things that make you feel good. Right, one of the questions I'll ask myself on a low energy day is, what would feel good to have already had done? What would feel good to have already had done? And usually I can start getting some momentum toward the things that I really want to accomplish.
Yeah, that's perfect, and right with what we talked about, being flexible and curious with your brain and understanding. And as a coach, we have some clients that what we do, we call pay for pain, right? They pay a coach to scare them, accountability, harshness, consequences. And that is something I haven't seen work for the majority. If it works for you, go for it. The intention, though, is to be curious, because sometimes that really harsh accountability is just a Band-Aid, and then when you stop that, whether that's with a coach or someone else, now you're right where you started instead of learning how you work. And as a coach, when somebody comes to the call and they haven't done the action item we agreed on, we don't say, oh, good try, great, high five, you didn't do it. It's you say, all right, let's talk about it. Last week that was important, really important, you committed to do it. This week it didn't happen. What changed from now to then? Or talk to me about the moment when you sat down to do lead gen. What went through your brain? What were you feeling? What was the story in your head? What are you thinking? This is how you move forward instead of being stuck, right? It's not shaming yourself. It's not getting pain and taking things away and don't, like all of these things. Once in a while, if you need that, that's okay. It's understanding the why behind it and then putting accommodations in place to help you. One thing I want to add a term is what's called rejection sensitivity dysphoria. This is a newer term. Okay, somebody else has already said yes. This is a newer term that's really important to understand around lead gen it's important to mention.
Sorry, can you say that?
Rejection sensitivity dysphoria. Have you ever heard someone say, well, I don't want to lead gen, I'm scared of rejection? For people with rejection sensitivity dysphoria, which is actually, I think, almost 50%, 25 to 50%, and correct me, because you large number have this. It's not just a fear of rejection. It literally lights up a pain part of your brain and causes emotional pain. So when someone says, oh, don't be afraid of rejection with calls and stuff, they're talking about their sense of rejection. This is a bigger thing. And again, we want to accommodate, right? We don't want to say, do it anyways, force it, because probably not going to do it. And one client I have, extremely successful, huge team, speaker, has it very bad. I'm not going to share who, I'll never out them. What we do with him though, all of his lead gen, he can't stand the tonality of rejection. All of it's over Facebook Messenger and text. Huge team, well known. All of his lead gen, his team calls, all we do for him is so he doesn't hear that tonality, because otherwise he literally will get a panic attack. It's not something wrong with you. It's not some limiting belief. It's not breaking through. I mean, you always want to test that. And first, meet yourself where you're at. And if that's happening for you, it's not some thing that you got to shift or do an affirmation around and be more positive. Today, at least put something in place that you can do. And then maybe you can explore that with a coach or a therapist or something and see if you can get some headway, which you probably can. Don't force yourself to do it today if it's causing distress and anxiety. And number 4, we're going to go into medication. And this is something that's got a lot of stigma to it. Some people are one side or the other. And I'm going to talk more from a personal perspective. It's not medical advice. I'm just going to talk from me because I have a story similar to ones I've heard before. 10 years ago, I finally got diagnosed. I went to the doctor, primary care doctor. They gave me Adderall. I didn't like the side effects. I didn't like how I felt. Didn't feel like myself. Went off of it. Said, I don't want meds. I had this pride in me. Great. I'm not going to be on meds. I'm going to do fish oil and probiotics and amino acids and all this stuff. I've been exercising in the morning and do all these things. And I struggled for 10 years. Pridefully. And I got to a point in, I guess, yeah, I'll share this. As a coach and production-wise, I was getting invited to masterminds with Gary Keller and Jay Papasan, right? Private masterminds, 100 people or less. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I can't even sit still. Like, what's wrong with me? It's Gary Keller. Like, I'm in a room of 100 and I'm embarrassed. I'm having to get up and walk around, and they say something and I forget it right away, and then I try to read the book that we're supposed to read, and I've got to read over the same paragraph 3 times and it goes out of my brain again. And then with the coaching clients, we have trainings, and I'm struggling to learn the material. And I got to a point where I realized I wasn't going to move forward and not everyone needs meds, right? You may not need, I have some clients that don't, and I have some clients that do. And so it's what's best for you that you talk about with your doctor. And so I went to an ADHD specialist center, and that's what I recommend. I would not recommend going to primary care. Not all of them, some of them are good. They typically don't have the knowledge that an ADHD specialist would have. And the ADHD specialist, I was able to get genetic testing, which told me what medication would have the best, the least side effects, the best effect, which one I'm gonna need more of. And I also tried 3, and we landed on my perfect meds. I used to have to wear sunglasses and noise-canceling headphones in the exhibit because of my sensitivity. I've like sensory processing stuff to fabrics and lights and sound, and I'm wearing glasses and no headphones. And it's the meds, right? I couldn't even wear glasses. I've tried 5 different pairs of glasses, and contacts, my eyes would reject. And now I can wear glasses until my meds wear off every day. And so what I would say is, for me, meds every morning are like putting on prescription glasses that I can wear. And the other thing I like to say, there's a lot of fear around them. A lot of times, you'll start with stimulants. That's kind of the go-to. That's regarded as the go-to. And people are afraid of what that could do or anything. They're not like SSRIs. They don't have to build up in your system. You could literally try them one day, hate how you feel. They wear off after 2 to 4 hours, depending on the med. And then you just don't do that one again. And you could also be on them for a while, and again, talk to your doctor about this. Be on them for a while, and then decide you want to go off of them. And because they don't have to build up in your system, and because they wear off after 4 hours, and you don't take them all the time, it's not difficult. There's not like a withdrawal period, like tapering off of it in the same way, depending on the med. And if you're really struggling, where it's debilitating, it can be a huge help. So Google ADHD center specialist, and then put the big city near you. Look at the reviews, research. You can always reach out. We can always help. You find and connect with that person, and it was life-changing for me, and that's why I'm wearing glasses and able to be up here with the lights.
Thank you for sharing your story. I know somebody who uses ADHD medication, and the way that he explains his experience is, I like my experience of living better when I'm on medication. And I'm so grateful for it. So if that sounds like you, definitely talk to a specialist. They'll help you get set up. And if you're not there yet, or you never will be, awesome. Glad you're here. Welcome to the club. So the last one, number 5, is acceptance and grace. Don't we love that? Acceptance and grace. Okay, so we have rejection. Many of us, some of us, me, have rejection sensitivity dysphoria. And what that means is that even the way that you talk to yourself in a way, imagine a 5-year-old kindergartner. Who here has kids? Who here knows kids? Who here was a kid? Awesome. If you're speaking to a 5-year-old and you talk to that 5-year-old's not getting along with you. They're not doing what you want them to do, right? They're in kindergarten. And you start talking to them like you talk to you to get them on board. Is it gonna work? Probably not. Cool. So inside of you, the age that your unconscious mind operates is at about 5 years old. We don't really age past that at an unconscious level. So you want to talk to yourself in a way like you would a 5-year-old, that you want to get on board with where you're going. So it's going to sound like, do I need a snack? Could I just use a little water? Do I need a little nappy nap? Right? It's going to sound like, hey, you know what, this is just where we are today, and I'm going to decide that that's okay for now. Acceptance and grace. If you treat yourself with the dignity and the respect that you would treat a 5-year-old who's having a hard time on your hard moments, in your hard days, a 5-year-old who's, do 5-year-olds know everything? Do they know how to do everything? Are they fully equipped to live life this way? No. If you treat yourself in these ways like you would a 5-year-old, with kindness and tenderness and joy and happiness that they're learning, do you think you're going to get further in life? What if you just get further today? What if that's enough? I'm good at other things, and it's okay that I'm not good at the things that I'm not good at. And I'm going to find the places where I'm running in my lane, where I feel really good, and where that large fuel tank that has 3 times the fuel, where that's what I'm tapping into, where that's what I get to use. Because you guys, when we tap into that and we're in flow and we're chasing things down, how good does it feel? It's like liquid gold. It feels incredible. And we want more of those moments and less of the moments where you've drained the don't want to tank, you've drained the resistance tank, you've drained all the things that you don't like, and you run out of cares. Right? I was going to use a different word, but I feel like it's it starts with a word and it ends with it's. You run out of those. The cares, it's. So that's about acceptance and grace. You want to give us an overview?
Yeah, and just real quick, I love the analogy of the 5-year-old because we didn't even talk about that, and that's what we use in coaching. And right before we end this, I'd like to share what doesn't work and what does work with clients. And these are top, 1-2%. Let's say, and you'd be surprised at how many agents come to me and their goal is 100 contacts, which is what we learned in the BOLD class, and what a lot of people say is 100 contacts a week, and they want to do 100 and they're doing maybe 15. They're built on referrals, and they have gone for, how many people have tried to go for 100 over and over and over again and you couldn't hit 100? You just thought, okay, yeah, a lot, right? I was in that camp too. And what doesn't work is, all right, we're gonna go from 0 to 100, and this week you're gonna do 100, and if not, we're gonna be super disappointed and beat up on ourselves. So you go for 100 and you hit 50 and you're like, what doesn't work is, man, what's wrong with me? Why did I just do 50? Everybody's doing this and I can only do 10 a day. That's 50%, that'd be an F and a grade. This sucks, maybe I'm not built for real estate, this is too hard, and all that stuff. What does work, because that doesn't work, what does work is, oh my gosh, 50? You did 50 and you've been doing 15 for a year, and you just did 50, let's do 50 again, right? You want to be able to push yourself, and we're going to actually gradually build up. Transitions can be hard for people with ADHD who are neurodivergent. Sometimes travel, for me personally, I have at least a day after travel until I feel like myself, and I know where the cups are, and I know where the bathroom is, and I know if I actually like the bed or the sheets are too scratchy. I still have a little sensitivity, right? So that transitions, we're actually going to ease in sometimes to transitions, and we're going to actually cheerlead ourselves, because a lot of us have had a lot of shame, and we don't need more. We're already super hard on ourselves. Perfectionism is another thing. And so, yeah, when you do something, celebrate. If you're moving forward, celebrate. Celebrate the little wins and keep adding on to them. And all of a sudden we're at 100. Things that happen slowly are things that are permanent. Things that happen quickly are more easily lost. So those are our 5 tips to hack your ADHD brain. You can see why this is important. Can you see how powerful this group and this community can be as we grow and we get more out there? And you have tips that we don't know. All of our brains are different. Connecting with each other and sharing what's working and being vulnerable and open and not masking. Like, how amazing is, what I want to say is thank you for letting me be like this. Because when I talk, I'm like this, right? Because I'm masking and I know it's my people. So I get to be myself a little bit and show it. So anyways, we have time for Q&A. Okay. Do we have any, so 5 minutes for questions?
5 minutes.
Okay, if any questions? Income, interesting, new, challenging, urgent, passion. Interesting, new, challenging, urgent, passion. Yeah.
Now, when you're ready to delegate some responsibility to someone else and bring someone on your team,
have you found a lot of success in adding someone that also has an ADHD brain or someone that has a different brain and that is more like high functioning for?
Great. Such a good question. Oh, yeah, definitely. Amazing question. She asked, when you leverage, would we recommend getting someone who also has ADHD or someone who doesn't? And that's a really good question, and it depends on what the role is. If you have an EA, I'll tell you what I like, and it just depends, right? You really want to go through the process. I like someone I'm slightly scared of, right? One of the first admin we hired with our team, we had for 8 years, and I was kind of terrified of her. She was our TC manager, and I was so scared to disappoint her, and she'd come in hard. And it brought in the extra accountability. And, you know, also there are teams like Molly D'Amatos. Do you guys know who that is? She, amazing, right? She ran Bold, is all over KW Education, all kinds of amazing stuff. And she's open and okay with me sharing that she has ADHD. A lot of her team is ADHD. And there are a lot of really powerful people in our company who have ADHD and you have no idea. The more that we uncover it, and we're gonna actually start doing some interviews with those high performing people for everybody to kind of see. So it depends on the role, and I would hire for the role and what you need. And since we have 10 times the amount of thoughts, it's fun to kind of go back and forth and think fast. Yeah. Do we have any last one? I know we have to.
Tyler, we have one.
Okay.
Just one more question. How do you deal with the shiny object syndrome?
You want a really practical tip for this one? I teach all of my clients this. When you need to focus on something, shiny object syndrome is one of two things. One is you're working on a big project and you get into that little slumpy part and you eject out to a new, interesting, bigger, better project that's also gonna solve all your problems, just like the last one was, and the one before that. So that's one. The second way, and I find this is an easier place to start, the way that shiny object syndrome shows up is when you're supposed to focus on one task. And you open a tab to send that quick email, and then you know that thing's only gonna take me 3 minutes. I should go ahead and do it right now, actually. And I forgot to change the laundry. It's gonna mold. Like I gotta go do that right now. And then an hour and a half later, you forgot what you started with, or you remember what you started with, and now you really don't want to do it because you've already started it, and it's boring. Okay, here's what you do. I am passionate about Post-it brand. None of those knockoffs. You get a Post-it brand.
This presentation sponsored by Post-it.
I'm glad to get paid for this Post-it. Bring in the Post-it gods. So, Post-it brand, striped line, those like notes like this, right? They're not too huge, but they're little. Whatever colors you want, they're really pretty. And you create a parking lot. You create a parking lot. So here's what you do. You start to do that task. If you have an ancillary thought, we have a fear that we're going to forget to do the thing and we got to do it right now. It's urgent. You write that on your parking lot. Start the practice of creating your parking lot. You're parking it. You're not forgetting it, you're parking it. You can write duplicate things. If you put this into practice this week, by the next week, your parking lot will get shorter and shorter. Then you put on your calendar a 30-minute block at the beginning, end, or lunch to review your parking lot tasks.
Wow, was that not worth the mission?
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Lauren. Amazing. Thank you for joining us today.